bedrooms. And so if you're selling it to someone that wants that sort of house now, in many cases, you would be sort of almost expected to carve out part of that room for an actual built-in closet. Does that make sense? So it's things like that that are, you know, once again, over time, that, like, I mean, another one that you could use, like from the 1970s, it was super popular for people to put in intercom systems, you know, in their homes. And so you'd have all, you know, the little buttons that you'd push in the kitchen, and, you know, you'd call people in their rooms with the intercom system. Don't really need that today, you know. I mean, just your mind can kind of go wild with the things that over time, you know, have changed and ultimately haven't kept up with basically what today's current market standard is with regard to equipment or well, another one, air conditioning. Once again, really old homes didn't have traditional air conditioning. You know, you open the windows, you know, you maybe have a fan, but you didn't have necessarily central, you know, heating and cooling. So in order to bring that home up with normal standards to not be functionally obsolete, you would need to put in a new air conditioning system.
What about the infrared windows?
That would be another thing. Yes, would be another good example. Okay. All right. Moving on. Question 18. I got this one pretty basic. Here you've got a parcel of land that's 15,000 square feet that you're wanting to value using the sales comparison approach. You find three virtually identical properties that each sold for $3.50 per square foot of land area. Simply calculate the value of the subject property. So here, all you're doing is multiplying 15,000 square feet times $3.50 a square foot. And so it should, should end up with a value of $52,500. Okay? Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Question, excuse me. Question 19. This one assumed you have a property with an annual net operating income of $125,000, and the market capitalization rate, or the cap rate, is 6%. Determine the estimated value of the property using the net income capitalization approach to value, which, once again, on the handout, we've obviously got other examples of it. So here, you're simply taking the $125,000 divided by 6%. 125,000 divided by 6%. 2,083,333.33 cents. Okay? Make sense? Now, just for fun, if I wanted to kind of throw you off your game on that one, an easy one would be to say, I'm going to give you the monthly income. Okay? And then you would have to multiply by 12 in order to get the annual income, because obviously, if you remember right, using the capitalization rate, we used annual net operating income, not monthly. Okay, so everybody follow what I'm saying? But that would be just an easy thing for me to sort of throw in to see if you're paying attention. Okay? And a lot of times when I do that, I might even go so far as to even underline monthly, just to, once again, make sure that you're paying attention and you know what you're doing. Okay, moving on. Okay, question 20. This is also, once again, contained in that original handout. Here we've got a person, they've got gross income on a monthly basis of $6,000. And so assuming that 33% of that income can be used for your mortgage payments, figure out what basically your maximum mortgage amount would be. All right? So we're going to take the 6,000, multiply that by 0.33. That's going to give us 1980. Okay? Everybody good with that? All right. Then we're simply going to, in this case, this is going to be on a monthly basis, so we probably need to go ahead and switch over to make sure it's 12 payments per year. All right. Well, yeah, you just need to do that at some point before you actually put in the rest of the steps. So make sure you put in 12 payments per year. All right, so put in the 1980. As our negative payment, 4% interest rate, 30-year term, solve for the present value or the loan amount. Okay. Make sense? Now, one thing just to sort of off the top of your head, okay, if a person's gross income is $6,000 a month, what does that mean their annual income is, roughly?
72.
So 72,000. Now, in this case, I purposely simplified it just a little bit because in the example that I provided you in the handout, one of the things you had other expenses per month, like you had student loans, you had car payments, you had, you know, credit card fees and that sort of thing. So that would have lowered the total amount that you would have had available for the mortgage payment. So this is someone who literally has no other financial commitments whatsoever. Okay, being able to afford a $400,000 mortgage. Does that make sense, everybody? Okay. Good.
Professor, I have a quick question.
Yep.
When you add the 12 per year, that's going to be at the beginning or?
Yeah, we need to put the 12 payments per year. I mean, before you put in anything in a problem, you always are going to start with what are the number of payments per year.
But even without that, I've got the same.
Well, yeah, because it was probably in there from the previous problem. Because your payments per year stay in there until you change them. Even clearing your calculator out doesn't change that.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay. Moving on, question 21. All right, debt service coverage ratio. I'm going to work through the problem, then I'm going to go back and explain it because we haven't talked about this yet, okay? All right, so the first thing we're going to do here is we've got a net operating income of $5,000 on a monthly basis, and we're going to divide that by what we're referring to as our debt service coverage ratio or debt coverage ratio. And I'm going to explain this here in just a minute, so but right now we're just going to go mechanically and work through the problem, okay? So 5,000 divided by 1.25 would give us 4,000, okay, as the amount available for our payment. Like I said, I'm going to explain that here in just a minute. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put that in as our payment amount. And this is also going to be on, obviously, a monthly basis, so you need to put in the 12 payments per year if you don't already have it set up as 12 payments per year. Okay, so 4,000 as our payment, 5% as our interest rate, 15 years as our term, solve for present value, and you should get 500, 5,000, 820, and 97. Okay, is there a match with that? Yep. Okay, now, let me sort of scroll down and let's talk a little bit about debt service coverage ratio. It can be referred to as DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. In your book, they actually shorten it to just simply DCR, debt coverage ratio. Same thing, it's just that you'll see some people use one or the other. But what it is simply a formula that takes the net operating income, the annual net operating income of the property, and divides it by the annual debt service on the property, or the payment, okay, on an annualized basis. Now, you're saying, what? Okay, remember back to our very first day. One of the things that we did was we went through a basic sort of income statement, where we started out, we had potential gross income, we subtracted out vacancies and collection losses, we added in other income, that gave us effective gross income, we subtracted out total operating expenses, and that gave us net operating income. Okay, you remember that from the very first day, okay? All right, so the number that once again we're pulling over here for the net operating income is coming, from that income statement. Okay, so everybody, that's nothing new, and that piece of it. Now, what follows on this income statement is the next line item is annual debt service, which is subtracted out from NOI. It gives us something that we call before tax cash flow. Okay, now there's a reason why I'm setting it up this way, because it helps to explain what you're actually doing and why you're actually doing this. Okay, so let's just say we've gone through all the brain damage of doing the calculation to get us down to net operating income, and we're going to keep it simple. We're going to say that our annual net operating income is $100,000 a year. Okay? Everybody kosher with that? Yes? Now, this is the part you need to pay attention to understand this. This is the income that we are generating off of the property after we have taken into account our expenses and our vacancies, we've added all this other income. So this is the money that we're sort of left with that is available to the lender, in one sense, is the way to look at it. Okay, so the lender is saying, all right, you have $100,000 every year that's available to pay us, and to pay us our mortgage payment. Is everybody with me? Now, in their mind, however, they're saying, even though you are estimating that you're going to have that $100,000 to pay us, the reality is they know stuff happens, and there's a very good chance that the property may underperform. In other words, you may not collect all the rents that you thought you were going to collect. You may not get all of the other income that you thought you were going to get. Your operating expenses may be higher than what you had anticipated. Okay, so that means that you probably are going to have something less than this in reality. Does that make sense? The lender's number one objective is what? They get paid. Okay, and they don't want any excuses for not getting paid. So what they do is they basically create this ratio called the debt service coverage ratio, and what it basically means is they want a cushion between what you say you're going to generate on the property and ultimately what you're going to be owing them. Now, normally, under normal traditional markets, that cushion, the minimum, is probably going to be with amazing credit, background, that sort of thing, is like a 10% cushion. Okay? But most borrowers, it's going to be closer to probably 20 or 30%. All right? Well, that cushion, the way that it works is as follows. They're going to say that cushion needs to be, let's just go with 20%. Okay? So they're going to say your debt service coverage ratio needs to be a 1.2, and so if your annual net operating income is $100,000, what you're going to do is do the math. $100,000 divided by 1.2 is going to give you a maximum allowable annual debt service of $83,333. Okay, and some change. So that means, another way of looking at it is they basically are sort of saying your income could potentially drop up to $16,000 on the property, and you're still going to have enough money to pay us our $83,000. Does that make sense? Okay. And the bigger they make the requirement of the debt service coverage ratio means, in essence, the less they trust you. Okay. Or the more risky they perceive the property. So if it's a one, for example, if they were to say a debt service coverage ratio of just 1.00, that would mean, if you were to do the math, 100,000 divided by 1 would be $100,000, meaning that they're basically trusting that every single dollar that you say you're going to generate, you're going to generate. They're not going to do that because they don't trust you that much. Okay? That's what I said. The minimum that they're probably ever going to accept is a 1.1. Normal is probably a 1.2, and for people that they get a little worried about, 1.3, 1.35. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, what that translates into is the higher they make that debt service coverage requirement, that means the lower the annual debt service the property can have, therefore the lower the loan amount that the property can have, therefore the more equity that you've got to put into the property in order to get the deal done. Okay, does that make sense? I can see several of you bobbing their heads, so you're still with me. Okay? Fundamental thing. Yes?
Just have a question. If you say that DSCR is 20%, why would you write that 1.1?
Because in essence, the lender wants you to have 20% above and beyond the net, or above and beyond whatever the annual debt service is. So in other words, if you take 83,333, multiply it by 1.2, you're going to get the 100,000. So just flipping it around the other direction. Okay? So have you ever wondered what a financial analyst does with regard to real estate investing? This is it. Okay? This is the sort of stuff that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Looking at deals, examining basically what the profitability would be, looking at how much potentially they could borrow on the property, figuring out how to maximize the loan amount, minimize the borrowing cost, and that's how they earn their keep, effectively. Okay. Moving forward. Okay. So I believe, okay. So that it at least explains what this whole debt service coverage ratio is all about. Okay, everybody cool with that? Okay, now, moving on. Question 22. One of the other things that the lender will do is they will set a maximum loan-to-value ratio whenever you go to get a loan. Now, this is true for residential, commercial. It doesn't really matter because, as we talked about before, the whole reason that lenders require you to get a down payment is so that you have some skin in the game in the event things go south, that you're not just going to walk away from the deal, okay? And so, in this case, you're simply told the lender's willing to give you an 80% loan-to-value ratio on based on the value of the property. The value of the property, $750,000. So all you're doing is multiplying the $750,000 times 80%. So the maximum loan amount on the property would be $600,000. The remaining $150,000 would be your down payment or equity. Okay? Awesome. Okay, we're almost there. Okay, so this one, once again, this was one of the handouts that I gave you. So on the chapter 15, if you sort of, and it's a spreadsheet that I also gave you, so you can kind of go back, play around with it, and just to sort of double check. And I actually used some of the same numbers that they did, but I actually simplified it a little bit. And instead of having you deal with mortgage, or having to deal with loan origination fees and having to deal with sales commissions, I took those two assumptions out to kind of simplify it up a little bit. Okay. So the first thing that we've got to do in this analysis to figure out, and the whole purpose of this analysis, if you remember, was to see if we owned this home, in this case for 5 years, what would actually be our true rate of return from having done so, given the price appreciation of the home and also the mortgage that we had on the home, and taking both of those into account, okay? So, the first thing we've got to do, and the one thing about this one that's a little, but this is the way that your textbook author chose to do it, is you flip back and forth a little bit between annual compounding and monthly compounding, okay? They do the annual compounding on the actual price appreciation of the home, but whenever you do the mortgage, you're seeing it's going to be based off of 12 payments per year, okay? And that's the way they chose to set it up, so we're gonna sort of adhere to that in our little analysis here, to be consistent. All right, so 1 payment per year, 180,000 as our present value, 3% as our interest rate, 5 years as our holding period, solve for future value, 208,669. Okay? Everybody get that? Okay. All right.
I got negative.
Yeah, if you would, if you
Oh,
put in the
yeah.
180 as a positive, you would get that as a negative. If you put in, you can put it in either way. In this, but the point being is the end result is the 208,000. Okay. All right. Then what we've got to do is, okay, the property was originally purchased for 180,000, and you are able to put in a down payment of 20%, meaning you are borrowing 80%. Okay? Yes? So 80% loan to value. So you got to figure out what your loan amount is. So you're simply going to take the 180,000 times the 80% loan to value ratio, and that's going to give you 144,000 as your actual loan amount.
Do we want to change it to months?
I did up here. Okay. So in this case, 12 payments per year, 144,000. As our loan amount, 7.5% as the interest rate, 30 years as the term, solve for the payment. $1,006.87 per month. Okay? Everybody cool with that? Yes? Okay. Then what we've got to do is find out how much do we owe on this loan at the end of 5 years, because our holding period is only for 5 years, so we're going to be selling it at the end of 5 years. So that's the reason we have the next step of the 1 input 60, shift, amortize, equal. So we get a loan balance that we would have to pay off at the end of 5 years of $136,249 and some change. Okay? All right? We're good to go on that. Okay? Now, so at this point, over here, we sort of shift over to this side and we say, okay, what was the sale price after 5 years? That's going to be the 208,669. What was the amount that we have to pay back on the mortgage outstanding balance? That is the 136,249. And this is what I'm saying. This is where this example differs from the one that I gave you. I simplified this one where number one, we don't have any broker fees and we don't have any loan origination fees. Okay, I just took those out just to kind of keep things simple. So in this case, that once we have those two numbers, we simply solve for what is our actual cash. $72,419, they rounded. Okay? Everybody cool with that? Okay, that's more than obviously we had in the example, because in this case we're not paying out those extra sort of fees and charges. Okay, so at this point we look at this as a sort of a cash in, cash out on a simple sort of 5-year holding period. So our future value in terms of the cash that we're going to receive after 5 years is the $72,419. Now, what is the cash that we're going to have to put into the deal? In other words, what's our down payment? 20% of the 180,000. So we're going to take that 180,000. So $36,000 would be our down payment. Everybody with me? Okay. So that would be the cash in to the deal. Okay, which would be sort of cash outflow. Now this is also going to be the way that they did it, one payment per year, okay? So up front, at the beginning of this deal, we put in $36,000. At the end of the deal, after 5 years, we were able to remove $72,000 in cash. What is our rate of return on this deal? Everybody follow? Okay. Value, 72,419, future value. And it works out to be actually almost right on the money, 15%. Okay? Yay.
Yay.
Okay, yes ma'am.
I got to 144,000,
Yep.
but then like I did the calculations, but I didn't get negative 1,000.
Okay, so make sure that what you're doing, once again, make sure that you've got it set for 12 payments per year. You have to switch it. So 12 payments per year is probably going to be the most common mistake that a person will make. But you can just simply start with 144,000 as your present value, a 7.5% interest rate, 30 shift in, and you should get the negative 1,006. My suspicion is that you had it set for one payment per year.
I changed it.
Okay. Just make sure that you cleared it out.
I was getting negative.
The other thing is, if you didn't, okay.
Oh, so I had to clear it out when I got that number.
Yes.
Okay.
I just left out that step.
Okay.
Okay? Are we good? Okay, so. All that. All right, so any other questions about, I know some of you came in a little bit late and that sort of thing. Any questions that any of you have about anything up to this point?
So if we feel comfortable with this next Tuesday, we just want to
Yeah, but as I said, I'm probably going to make, some little tweaks to it just to make sure that you're not trying to go through and memorize keystrokes in the calculator. So, there will be some little adjustments. You just make sure that you're reading it, fresh. My advice to you, whenever you break up into your groups, don't forget, two other questions, two discussion questions at the end. As I said, one of those is going to come from the Chapter 16 stuff, which, we spend all the time talking about different types of mortgage issues, mortgage-related things, everything from judicial foreclosure versus non-judicial foreclosure, talking about basically secured loans versus unsecured loans, and so forth and so on, yada, yada, yada. So one question will be based off of that material, and the other question will be kind of just whatever else I just choose to randomly, pick up on and talk about or ask you to write about now. Okay, so I'll just repeat a couple of things. We've got one more little thing to do, 5 minutes, I promise. All right. So, once again, you're going to be here on time at 6 p.m. If you're not here on time, or you leave early, you will not get the extra 4 points that I am going to give you as a bonus. As I said, we're going to have a guest speaker, James Donnelly of the Castle Group. His company is the company that basically is paying for the scholarships that most of you are receiving as part of the property management minor. Okay, so the $1,000 for each class that you're getting is coming from his company. All right. Now, are there any of you that aren't doing the property management minor? Those are maybe a couple of you. Okay, if you're not, you probably ought to think about it because it's a way to save $1,000 off of your tuition off of each of the 6 courses. So up to $6,000. But he's going to come in. I've asked him to just talk a little bit about, kind of a 30,000-foot view about property management, sort of some of the career opportunities there, talk a little bit about the internship program that he has with the Castle Group for our students to go through, and then open it up for you guys to have questions and that sort of thing. Don't disappoint me in terms of trying to rush him out of here so that you can get the exam started. If you don't ask questions, I will ask questions, okay? And he will stay here until 7:30, okay? At 7:30, we will be done with that, and then you'll maybe take a quick little 5-minute break, and then we'll start the exam. And as I said before, you'll have all the remaining time, and I may give you a little bit of extra time beyond 10 o'clock if it's absolutely necessary. But if you know your stuff, you're going to finish it pretty quickly. If you don't know it, you're not. okay? And no amount of time is gonna be sufficient. So what I would suggest you do is to break up into study groups, over the next few days, go through all these problems. The way that I would approach the problems, and I'm telling you from years and years of doing this, okay, this is my 30th year of teaching, okay? So I'm telling you, I know a little bit about how for you to be successful with these kinds of problems. What I would suggest you do is you look at the problem completely independent of the solution, okay? In other words, you sort of treat that piece of paper as if it were fresh, and you try now to go through it, solve each and every one. Don't look at the solutions until you have done every single problem on there. Then go back and look at the solutions and see how you did, and then see where you made mistakes, okay? If you try to go through and simply work through the problem as you're reading the solution, you're trying to memorize a solution, okay? That is not going to work for you as a strategy. I guarantee you it's not going to work, okay? So the most beneficial approach is to go through as it was a fresh, cold sort of experience and begin to kind of work through each one. Now, if you're getting stuck and you can't quite understand the logic behind why you would approach it this way or that way, or this step or that step, that's definitely where working in a group would be beneficial to kind of help to illuminate, those sorts of things. And of course, the videos are going to be available to be able to kind of go back and watch through those and sort of see what I did if you didn't quite pick up on it as we were sort of doing it, okay? Does that make sense? Okay? I want you to do well. I really, really do. But it's a sort of thing, as I said, it's either right or it's wrong. And I don't have any idea. I'm not going to make a prediction in this particular case, as to how well you're going to do. I hope you do well. But my suspicion, is that some of you will probably knock it out of the park and get a perfect score, and some of you maybe won't. I hope that you all can do as well as you possibly can do. Now, granted, this is going to count as 50% of your course grade, all right? I don't anticipate needing to curve. But what I will do, as I said earlier tonight, after you finish the test, it will take me a matter of about 20 seconds to go through and grade your test and be immediately able to tell you what you scored on it, so that you'll know where you stand by the time you leave the room, okay? And so at that point, you hopefully can either rejoice or start crying. Hopefully it's rejoicing, all right, anything else before we get out of here? Okay, good luck. Certainly feel welcome if you do want to stop by and you've got questions. I would prefer you stop by and talk to me. I'm usually here every morning, so feel free to stop by. And don't forget to turn my calculators back in. Bar one.
Last one?
Do you get a mindset? Oh.
Yep. Start fresh. Yep. Yep. Yep.
I know we have.
No, three is your interest rate. I'm sorry, no, three is, I'm sorry. No, it's not 3, it's 30 years. Okay, that's one. Yep.
I have a quick question. Already in the very beginning, when it comes to, like on the last problem, and I'm trying to get there because I got a different number. Oh my God, I did it. Okay, never mind. I did-
Sometimes redoing it, you
But I don't,
make one little mistake, it happens.
okay, I have one more question.
Okay.
Did you take that off already?